Coronation Day, Bruce took from the vault Theodore Parker's Bible, which we hold here in trust. Knowing that Theodore Parker was one of my favorite Unitarians. And so I offered this benediction from Theodore Parker. Be ours a religion which, like sunshine, goes everywhere. Its temple, all space. Its shrine, the good heart. Its creed, all truth. Its ritual, works of love. Its profession of faith, divine living. Amen.
Amen.
Yes, now we would like to invite everyone to sing number 123, Spirit of Light.
I just one of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, was that organized by Eleanor Roosevelt?
Yeah.
The statue of her is over here, in which the Women's Baptist Church put up there.
Wow. So glad you mentioned that.
Thank you, Rena.
Okay. So cool.
Okay, page 123.
So as Dana mentioned, the United Nations has just finalized the text for a global compact for migration, which is going to be adopted formally at this conference in Morocco tomorrow, December 10th and December 11th. This compact is being created as more than 68 million people are currently forcibly displaced by conflict or disaster. Increasingly, we are seeing more and more people are on the move. So some of these people who are on the move qualify as refugees, which is a legal term that refers to those who are displaced due to a well-founded fear of persecution for reasons of race, religion, nationality, political opinion, or membership in a particular social group. And those who don't meet the legal definition of refugees are just referred to as migrants. So because of their separate legal frameworks, so the Global Compact for Migration tells us that refugees and migrants are entitled to the same universal freedoms and universal human rights and fundamental freedoms as we read, as articulated in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. But only refugees are entitled to the specific international protection as defined by international refugee law. So because of this, the Global Compact for Migration sets a framework to address migration in all of its dimensions, affirming the treatment and rights to which all people and all migrants are entitled.
I would like to emphasize that a good deal of this migration is set in motion because of climate change, and that we should be aware of that kind of, we should be aware of that. The dry,
The conflict in Syria, climate change.
many, they don't have enough rain, they have all sorts of upheavals, and it comes because it has been caused, this climate change has been caused by people, things that people have done.
Thank you. And I think it's important for people to read, even though you've done a wonderful shorthand version, it's nice to go back to the original document. It's still important for people to read it.
Yeah, we were trying to make.
No, we understand, but we're saying in general, leaders and presidents of the United States, and people should read full documents.
So some people, we have, just so everyone knows, we put some copies from the Youth Service Committee, the red copies of the full text of the Universal Declaration.
This is the one with the full text.
Yeah, the red one also has the full text, as well as an abridged version.
And each one of the articles is much more information.
Of course,
I
yes.
appreciate what we read because it lifts them all up.
Right.
But the details included in here convinced me that my government, sadly, is doing all the wrong things Article 1 to 30.
Hi, this is Orlando Mcallister. I'm here with Dr. Bennet-Lord. What is this event all about, Dr. Lord?
Absolutely be aware that this is the 70th anniversary of the United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which was signed in 1948. You know, Eleanor Roosevelt chaired that United Nations Commission. And of course, it deals with the inherent dignity of each and every human being. And what better time in 2018 to celebrate the achievements of human rights, especially in the global world in which we reside. And of course, you know, Mandela came to Community Church in 1990 after he was freed, because Community Church helped with the Spear of the Nation and his freedom. And so he came back to honor us here at Community when he was released from prison. And of course, Al Sharpton and our former senior minister, Bruce Southworth, were roommates over in South Africa at the time. And of course, we have always been a liberal tradition here in New York City. We have a flame that still glows. And today we're having a special program. Just a brief celebration of those 30 articles from the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Our new chair, Dana Birch, will organize it, and Allison Hess from the Unitarian Universalist United Nations office will be our guest. And we also have featured Reverend Rosemary Gray McNabb, a former church member who rose through the ranks, who is now president of Star King Ministerial School in California. And with all of the fires in California and the brushes and the new election issues,
Yes.
Rosemary is poised to talk about many of those issues this afternoon. So we hope that you'll be here with us to capture some of the speakers. Bob Guns from the Concerned Black Forum has a lot to say about African American human rights, from Ferguson until the present And so we would like to key in on whatever aspects you think are important. So we'll let you speak to various people and disciplined individuals who have a great deal to share. So thank you so much for being with us today, and we look forward to more collaborations.
Thank you, Faye. Thank you very much.
We saw you at the General Assembly in New Orleans, and here you are with us today. Well, we hope you do not mind sharing a few moments with us about human rights. We have a United Nations Human Rights Program today.
Right, and I'm going downstairs right now, but I'd be happy to talk about it later.
Very good. Denise, how are you? I'm good. Denise, as our new commissioned lay minister, we thought it would be appropriate for you to be here with us on Human Rights Day. We have a United Nations program downstairs, and since it's the 70th anniversary, we just hope you would be able to say just a few words about the importance of human rights.
Well, I believe that human rights are critical for the survival of each and all of us. And we deserve human rights. We deserve to have our integrity intact. We deserve to be respected as the human beings that we in fact are, whatever our race, class, ethnicity, religion, etc. I am a child of the United Nations. I truly am. And delighted to celebrate this 70th anniversary. It's an important day.
Denise, you come from a family of diplomats. Your father was a former ambassador. Can you tell us a little bit more about his work? And
my father served as demographer statistician at the United Nations until my country, Jamaica, gained its independence in 1962. And then he served as Jamaica's one and only career diplomat, serving as ambassador to Germany, the United States, the Vatican, Israel, Argentina, on and on and on. I am a product of the United Nations International School System, and it's a wonderful one. You see a glimpse of what beloved community can actually look like.
well, it's so wonderful to have you in our midst, and we learn so much from each other.
Absolutely, great to be here. Thank you for this honor.
Later on this afternoon, we'll have a quiet service in the chapel honoring the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. We'll have a little quiet music while we actually go through each of the 30 articles. Now, they're lengthy articles, but so important. For example, Article number 4, the abolition of slavery and in servitude. No one should have to be trafficked. There are many people who still are in slavery. And of course, the United Nations outlawed that so long ago. But with so many efforts today, for example, the migrants at the border in our own country, the United States of America, how can we champion human rights around the globe when we have such outrage at our own borders? So there's so much to discuss, but at least at this brief ceremony, we can pause and just reflect on some of the obligations for leadership that we still have to maintain in the world today. So thank you, and we hope that many more will join us. Well, good afternoon. It's so wonderful to be here at Community Church with our own Jonathan Virgil. Jonathan is serving on the search committee for a new senior minister here at Community. And of course, as we celebrate the United Nations Universal Declaration of Human Rights, there is a grand tradition that our minister be knowledgeable about the inherent dignity of each and every human being. So how does the search committee feel about that process?
Well, I think overall you would argue that the universalist Unitarian philosophy and belief system is essentially aligned with the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, since it affirms the individual value and worth of all people. So you would imagine we would, the minister, pretty much all Unitarian ministers ought to be grounded in those principles. So as we're looking forward on the journey towards finding somebody who responds to the call from this church, then that's obviously going to be part of what we're looking for. But I would imagine that almost every Unitarian minister has a strong understanding of the relationship between between human rights, which is a universalist view of humanity, and the teachings of Unitarian Universalism.
But as we saw with the 100th anniversary of Mandela's birthday and the passing of George Herbert Walker Bush, we see that many of the iconic figures embodied a sense of noblesse oblige, and they understood maybe their superiority or their arrogance about certain human rights beliefs. But can we leave it to people like Donald Trump, or we don't know what kind of new emerging leadership? Can we really have a sense that they know what's really going on with the interdependence of all human beings without regard to race, color, creed? Some people do not even pay attention to planetary issues or climate change issues. So do we need to ask twice in the search for a new senior minister that they honor these inherent values and the dignity and worth of individuals and the people and the planet?
Again, I'd say that the Unitarian Universalist movement already embraces that vision, which is one of the reasons I'm a Unitarian Universalist. And that vision is always going to be at odds with the forces of power which reinforce or continue injustices. So almost regardless of whether your president is Trump or Obama or whoever, there's always going to be a tension where we in the Universalist Unitarian have a vision of the world as a constantly improving place, which we have to push through with our politicians, and that's done through mobilizing people, so that we can help build a grassroots movement of faith and belief in that vision of the world. So that's how I personally would see the Unitarian Universalism, its relationship with pursuing a positive vision of the world.
Is your background from Great Britain, from globally? Is your background from England, or?
I'm British, yes.
British.
Yeah, but I've traveled around the world a lot.
So in the 1960s, we had the stirring of the call to ministry, and we had Reverend James Reed, a Unitarian Universalist minister who heeded Martin Luther King's call and went down to Selma, and of course he lost his life. They had no idea the rigors and the dangers of civil rights participation. And of course, UUs valued the civil rights struggle, and Dr. Harrington here at Community Church was a stalwart supporter, as many UUs are. But again, we look at the belief system. So many African Americans, for example, are Christian and really gung-ho in their faith about God and Jesus. And around the globe, you have over 1 billion Muslims, and they honor the Bible and Judeo-Christian beliefs, but people have so many diverse views. And as a Unitarian Universalist person, we honor Hinduism, and so how is that going to work with choosing and selecting the right kind of minister for the 21st century?
Well, I again would go back to a belief that approach and that vision is an inherent part of Unitarian Universalism. So we would imagine that all the candidates we get have a vision of the world that understands the Unitarian Universalist vision of valuing the learnings and positive teachings of all the world's religions, and who sees our mission to stress those commonalities and that unified common values which rest on the inherent value of all individuals. And conventional established religion has not always recognized that vision, but it's always part of the vision, of the fundamental vision of pretty much every global religion. So,
well, I love the fact that you have not stated any preference. You didn't mention any African Americans or a gay person or a young person. So as you said, you're just looking at the slate of qualified candidates, and because they share a common belief system and a shared sense of values, including our Universal Declaration of Human Rights, you feel assured that we will have no problem finding a new senior minister.
I trust that we will, and hope we will find a suitable candidate. But our process is always subjected to who's available and who's open at that point in time. So there's certain factors at play which are beyond the control of all of us. But we know that we have a broad sense of the kind of vision that we're looking for.
Well, we've done it before here at Community Church, and so we thank you for your service so far, and we look forward to the candidates that you all select. Thank you so much, Jonathan Burchell.
Good afternoon. This is the Honorable David D. Strawn, and David is a long-time member of the United Nations and Global Affairs Committee. David has also written a recent book, Playing the Game. And of course, David recommended a United Nations program on human rights, but focused on the United States. David, would you like to say more about human rights?
Well, I'm very interested in human rights. I believe that everyone should have human rights. But under the system of government that we have, where the economic system is capitalism, capitalism and human rights go together like, or don't go together at all. They're like oil and water. So as long as people are interested in just profit, there will be very little in terms of human rights.
So what's your involvement in this movement, and how many years have you been involved in human rights?
Well, for my life, I've always been involved or concerned with justice.
Yes.
Living in the United States under apartheid system that we have here, I know what injustice is about. So I've always been concerned with justice for all people all over the world, all my life. From a very young person, I've always been concerned with justice.
So what's the state of affairs right now of this government and the way it treats its people?
Well, all presidents are chief executive officers of empire.
Okay.
This is the empire. And what you have is a situation where in many cases you have what you call a faux democracy, where you have an illusion of democracy, but the president serves the interests of the ruling class, the top class. And what's good for them? The corporate class that runs the country. This is a corporate state. And the president serves the interests of the corporation, not the masses of people of it.
So it's not a socialistic system at all? Socialism, perhaps? Would that be socialism? Would that be a better form of government that benefits the people?
Whatever you get that will benefit the people, that's what I would be interested in. There are all types of socialism, so I would be interested in things that benefit the people. Now, in some of the Scandinavian countries, you have capitalism, but they don't have the scourge to the extent that we have here in the United States, white supremacy racism. So they have capitalism that's in check, that even though they have capitalism, the people in some cases benefit by social and economic programs that benefit the masses of people, such as Scandinavia. Norway, Sweden, Denmark, and whatnot, they do have a system over there that gives some benefits to the masses of people.
Thank you so much for your time. Thank you.
Thank you as always, David. So at this time, we would like you to meet our wonderful, dynamic tenor soloist, Jonathan Long.
Hello, hello.
How are you?
Hello, how are you?
Good.
And each year you mesmerize the audience with your renditions of Handel's Messiah. And so what are you doing these days? What is your latest venture?
I'll be singing at the Colony Club on Wednesday for Christmas, and then I'll be down doing a concert, soloist with the Lance Hayward Singers, this coming Friday on the 14th at St. Stephen's Church on the West Side. So if you like jazz, that's the place to be.
Well, very good, Jonathan. Thank you so much. It's always a pleasure and a joy.
Take care.
All the best. Hello, Rosemary. You're on the record these days for being president of Star King.
Yes,
And
one of our two seminaries.
Many people here listening may not know that much about Star King. Can you just share something about it?
Sure. We are part of the Graduate Theological Union, which is the largest consortium of multi-religious schools in the world. And we're the Unitarian Universalist and Multi-Religious Seminary there. We have roughly 110 students, and 2/3 of them are Unitarian Universalists, and another third are progressive religious leaders in other religious traditions. So we've been around since 1904, and we are determined to create Unitarian Universalists and progressive religious leaders who have an understanding of the importance of dismantling white supremacy and living in just and sustainable communities. That's part of everything we teach and everything we do at Star.
So do you base your philosophy on scripture, the Bible perhaps?
We are Unitarian Universalists, so we regard scripture, traditional Christian and Jewish scripture, as one of many sources that we use. Because we're Unitarian Universalists, we have a variety of sources that we draw upon for the world's wisdom and earth-centered traditions and our commitment to the democratic process. We have a lot of things that we hold in common. We do not have a creed. We are not like the people who recite the Apostles' Creed in a more traditional Christian way. But we do have the 7 principles that we promise to affirm and promote among us. So we're a covenantal religion. We're as good as the promises we make.
Let me ask you something. Have you ever heard of Benjamin Franklin's contribution at all? Do you know anything about Benjamin Franklin?
I know very little about Benjamin Franklin in relation to his religion. I know that he was part of the Founding Fathers and that different ones of them had different relationships to religion. I know that among the founders of the Declaration of Independence includes a man named Benjamin Rush, who was in fact a Universalist and shared many of our beliefs and affirmations. So Benjamin Franklin, not so much. Benjamin Rush, yes.
I have his book.
Oh, do you?
His biography.
Oh, great.
Yeah, he's the one that started the structure of the university.
That's right.
And the different roles. Provost.
I have to excuse myself.
Yes,
I have
sure.
to be at a birthday party.
45 minutes late. But we have something for you.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Sandy. Happy birthday to you.
My 10th decade, but I don't know.
We wanted to start this.
Wow.
Oh, honey, take a picture.
On December 10th, 1948, the United Nations General Assembly adopted and proclaimed the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. Many believe it has had more political impact in the modern era than any other written document. Eleanor Roosevelt, one of its principal architects, described it as a modern Magna Carta. From this simple collection of 30 articles has flowed more than 20 international conventions, including the Convention Against Torture in 1984, the Convention on the Rights of the Child in 1989, and the Mine Ban Treaty in 1997. These guys, all of our work, inspiring our vision of a world free from oppression and injustice, where all can realize their full human potential. We at the USC believe that the arc of the moral universe bends towards justice, and that it is bent by the courageous and patient efforts of women and men around the world who daily confront unjust power structures and challenge oppressive policies. We hope you'll want to be part of this work at the UUSC member, supporter, and human rights defender. Charlie Clements, President and CEO of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights.
This Universal Declaration of Human Rights as a common standard of achievement for all peoples of all nations, at the end that every individual and every organ of society keeping this declaration constantly in mind shall strive by reaching an education to promote respect for these rights and freedoms, and by progressive measures, national and international, to secure their universal and effective recognition and observance both among the peoples of member states themselves and among the peoples of territories under their jurisdiction. Article 2. Everyone is entitled to all the rights and freedoms set forth in this declaration without distinction of any kind, such as race, color, sex, language, religion, political or other opinion, national or social origin, property, birth, or other status. Furthermore, no distinction shall be made on the basis of the political, jurisdictional, or international status of the country or territory to which a person belongs, whether in the independence, trust, non-self-governing, or under any other limitation of sovereignty. Article 4. No one shall be held in slavery or servitude slavery, and the slave trade shall be prohibited in all their forms. Article 5. No one shall be subjected to torture or to cruel, inhuman, or degrading treatment or punishment. Article 6. Everyone has the right to recognition everywhere as a person before the law. Article 7. All are equal before the law and are entitled without any discrimination to equal protection of the law. All are entitled to equal protection against any discrimination in violation of this declaration and against any incitement to such discrimination. Article 8. Everyone has the right to an effective remedy by the competent national tribunals for acts violating the fundamental rights granted him by the Constitution or by law. Article 9. No one shall be subjected to arbitrary arrest, detention, or exile. Article 10. Everyone is entitled in full equality to a fair and public hearing by an independent and impartial tribunal in the determination of his rights and obligations and of any criminal charge against him. Article 11. Everyone charged with a penal offense has the right to be presumed innocent until proved guilty according to law in a public trial at which he has had all the guarantees necessary for his defense. No one shall be held guilty of any penal offense on account of any act or omission which did not constitute a penal offense under national or international law at the time when it was committed. nor shall a heavier penalty be imposed than the one that was applicable at the time the penal offense was committed. Article 12. No one shall be subjected to arbitrary interference with his privacy, family, home, or correspondence, nor to attacks upon his honor and reputation. Everyone has a right to the protection of the law against such interference or attacks. Article 13. Everyone has a right to freedom of movement and residence within the borders of each state. Everyone has a right to leave any country, including his own, and to return to his country. Article 14. Everyone has a right to seek and enjoy in other countries asylum from persecution. This right may not be invoked in the case of persecutions genuinely arising from non-political crimes or from acts contrary to the purposes of the principles of the United Nations. Article 15. Everyone has a right to a nationality. No one shall be arbitrarily deprived of his nationality, nor denied the right to change his nationality.